What a great and creative space. Thanks so much for sharing that space with us. And right now we're going to be talking about the stress on our trees. And there's a lot of stresses on our trees right now. I'm joined by April Rose, who's a consulting arborist, has her own business, Rosewood Arboriculture. Welcome back to Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you, Tom.
And we talk about stress on trees, and it's been like this 10-year cycle of, drought, monsoon, flash drought, a lot of stress on the trees out there right now.
Yeah, our trees have to be resilient to so many situations, and they're weathering it. The right tree in the right place is weathering the drought pretty well, but trees that are not necessarily the right tree in the right spot are having a tougher time. They're becoming more vulnerable to secondary pathogens, things like insects or fungus that are always around but are able to take hold when trees become stressed.
Well, I want to talk about some of the stress factors. We know about drought, we know about monsoons. Heat is a big concern, right? Right,
especially in an urban environment like Austin proper is now, we really have an urban heat island effect where that's when all of the hard surfaces that we have hold radiant heat from the sun, and they continue to release it at night, so we don't have that normal cooling that we experience in a more pervious environment like out in a rural area. And so then that compounds the effect of the next day's full sun. And so our highs are higher both during the day and the night. And so that heat makes it more difficult for trees to perform photosynthesis throughout the day. When it gets too hot, photosynthesis shuts down.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact temperature, but above a certain point, the photosynthesis actually shuts down.
I'll bet we reach that temperature a lot in Central Texas. Now, and human activity, of course, not just the heat island effect, but things we do around our trees have, or to them, have a big impact on stress.
Yeah, so if you think about in my neighborhood, on my street, there's a lot of redevelopment happening. There's homes that are being remodeled or torn down and rebuilt. And so I see a lot of construction trucks, bobcats and things moving through yards and not always really doing a great job of observing those tree protection zones and compacting soil, and then putting in new concrete that then you've got compacted soil, and now you've got a more limited root zone because there's new concrete, and then you've got increased reflective and radiant heat. So it's our trees really are being, they have to deal with a lot. We don't really give our trees a lot of times the attention that they really deserve until they start to show signs of stress, and then people get really concerned and they want to know what they can do, and a lot of times it's really just about little steps regularly to maintain vigor.
Well, trees are so critical to our landscapes, to the comfort of our homes, to the aesthetic of our neighborhoods in our city. We were talking before the program, and you talked about people doing some preventive work in terms of retaining the services of an arborist, like you would a dentist, right?
Yeah, an analogy that I like to use because it kind of resonates with people is maybe think about your tree work almost like you think about your dental work. It's really better to hire an arborist, hire a certified arborist, and have them come out every year or two and just do an inspection and walk around and educate you, the homeowner, about your trees. A certified arborist is going to spend the time to explain to you what they're seeing in your canopy, along the stem, around the ground, the whole picture. And so they're going to be able to recommend small steps regularly that are going to maintain, to establish a really good structure in the branches, and also maintain a really good rooting environment for your tree. So it's better to do a little bit of proactive care than something catastrophic down the road, just like with your teeth.
Well, I want to talk about some of those proactive things we can do, but before we move on, you used the phrase certified arborist. We want to underscore that's critically important. Don't hire just a tree cutting service.
I see it a lot in my neighborhood where people leave flyers on in your door, just says, I want to cut your trees. But a lot of times those people don't really understand how trees grow and how they respond to wounds. And any cut that we make really needs to be made for a specific reason, not just stripping out a tree because you think that you want more light to your grass or that's how it's supposed to look. But in fact, the opposite is true. Really, stripping out a tree is very, very bad for the tree. And so an arborist has experience and education and is required to do ongoing professional development and abide by a code of ethics to do what's best for the trees.
Right. Well, and speaking of pruning, there are a lot of don't do's. One we talk about a lot is lollipopping the tree, which is pruning the tree so far up that the sun kind of bakes the root zone. That's one problem. But there's another bad behavior called lion's tailing. Tell us about that.
I've seen that really, really ramp up in the last few years. I feel like it's almost an epidemic. And I think it's kind of like crepe murder. You remember how I think people are starting to maybe finally get the message where topping crepe myrtle trees is wrong. Well, I think that we're moving into maybe the next phase of tree misinformation, that lion's tailing or really stripping out all the interior twigs and small branches or really cleaning out the interior of the canopy is good for the tree, and it's really not. And while sometimes it is appropriate to increase airflow or to do some removal in the interior of the canopy, removing all the interior branches is actually really bad for the tree because it needs those interior leaves to support the limb itself, to support photosynthesis production and diameter growth of the stem.
Okay, now another thing that people can do proactively is to keep the trees kind of vital and support them generally. And you can use good, just organic matter for that and feeding the trees. Let's talk about the appropriate way to really give the plants that vitality they need.
Yeah, the best way to hedge against drought or any stress that our trees are going to experience, which they're going to experience, is to maintain vigor. And so it's choosing the right tree for the right spot, making sure it's suited for our environment, making sure it has adequate soil volume, so a really good, appropriate sized planting space. And then limiting competition, so making sure that you're not really promoting a thick, lush turf grass as opposed to promoting the root zone. You want to limit competition and you want to really feed that root zone by applying compost, organic matter, at least annually, about a ½ inch annually over the entire root zone is a minimum recommendation. And then trying to maintain 2 to 3 inches of mulch over the entire root zone is the best thing for your tree. Most people aren't willing to have an entire yard of mulch, but some people are willing to have a large mulch bed if they understand the long-term benefits. And the trees are the highest value part of the landscape. So it's the hardest thing to replace, and it provides a lot of value for the home.
In wet years, people often see fungal diseases. What's a good approach for a homeowner looking at that big tree and they see powdery mildew or some other kind of fungal disease taking over?
Well, one thing is to not overreact and to kind of increase your comfort level and knowledge about what's just normal. It's normal to have a little bit of fungal activity, and a healthy tree can handle that. And so a little bit of fungal activity doesn't mean that the tree necessarily needs treatment.
Okay, and real briefly, what about early leaf drop?
It's normal for a tree to begin to lose its leaves middle to late summer in drought seasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and all of the above seems to be happening.
Yes.
So you have a website. Real briefly, tell me about that.
rosewoodarbor.com.
Okay.
I'm doing consultations, so meeting with landowners and communities to help them learn how their trees grow and what they can do to take care of them, and also doing educator workshops and mindfulness nature walks and tree ID walks.
Okay, well, just a word to our homeowners out there. It really pays to walk around the yard with an arborist. Thank you so much for coming on Central Texas Gardener. Coming up next is our friend Daphne.